All right, so now that we have initialized our state with a time as an object, and we have a function that actually creates the logic to convert our time and sets up our object here of hours, minutes, and seconds, where we can actually instantiate our state and set it up to our object in our time here. Let's actually connect these together in a life cycle in our component did mount so that it can render on the page and we can see it. Uh, so to do that, we're going to work with the lifecycle component did mount. Now in our app.js, if you remember, we worked with component will mount. And component will mount essentially calls immediately before the mounting occurs, whereas component did mount is going to be called immediately after a component is mounted. So let's see how this would work with the timer and why we're going to use the component did mount lifecycle. Well, it's not going to be asynchronous, right? So we don't have to worry about getting anything else to render first and foremost. We can use component did mount because we can wait to see that everything else is loaded successfully and then bring in our timer and then instantiate our timer. We don't have to wait for all the contracts to load in order to do this. So what we're going to say is component did mount, and we're going to create a time left variable. So we're going to say time left variable. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our seconds to time. So we're going to say this dot seconds to time is going to be this dot state dot seconds. And so now we're instantiating seconds to time. We're getting our function and we're bringing it into our time left variable. So now what we're doing is we're bringing in our seconds to time and we're setting it to the state of the seconds, which is the 20 seconds here, into this variable time left var. And now we're going to load this into our timer effectively. And we do that by setting state. So we can say this dot set state, okay? And what's the state that we want to set? Well, it's time. And what do we want time to be? Well, we want to set time to time left variable. So now that we've actually set our seconds to time to the state, we should actually have access to these properties that we built in our object here, our hours, our minutes, and seconds. And we should see this access come through if we want to render this state out. So let's give this a shot together and see if it actually works. So we're going to try rendering out our hours, minutes, and seconds and see if we actually get any so we're going to change the style in our div and we're going to go color black. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're just going to bring in this dot state dot time and what do we want from time? Well, we're going to grab the minutes. So how do we do that? Well, we just grab the property in time. So we say time dot m, and we want the seconds. So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to add a colon, so we can see it like minutes, seconds, and I'm going to change this to seconds. Okay. Now I'm going to save this. And now let's go to our local host and see if we see anything. So we hit refresh, put it up. We see the deposit, withdraw, airdrop, but we're not seeing the time displaying. Our state is not actually being displayed. So why is that? Why do you think the state actually isn't being displayed? Well, because we wrote this entire code in our airdrop component, right? But we've never actually brought our airdrop component into our app. We've never actually brought it in to be displayed here, right? So we have all the code set up, but it's not displaying anything because it's not actually wired into our application just yet, right? So how do we actually wire it up? Well, as we said, in order to wire this up, we're going to we want to bring it into our main, essentially bring our airdrop component to be displayed in our main component because this is where we have our airdrop. It's in the form. So in order to do this, all we have to do is just import airdrop from airdrop. Okay. And then we're going to scroll down to where our airdrop is. And right next to airdrop here, let's just bring an airdrop like this. So let's bring it in. Okay, so let's save this and let's reload, see what happens. Okay, and I'm getting a start time being undefined. Okay, and we get an error that start time is undefined. And that's actually because we haven't defined start time yet. We've created our bindings for it for bringing it into the constructor, but we never actually, but we still haven't wrote that functionality out. So that's my bad. So what we're going to, and we're just going to code these out for now. So start time, comment them out, the start time and the countdown, because we haven't wrote this out yet, but we want to make sure that it's displaying first. So it's not a big deal. We just comment it out, save. Let's go back to our local host and refresh. And all right, so we are now seeing effectively our airdrop coming through. So we don't see the time yet. We don't see the 0 or the 20 seconds. And we're going to look at why in a second. But at least for now, we are seeing this colon. And where does this colon come from? Well, it actually comes from our airdrop, right? Because we wrote the colon over here between our state.time and our minutes and our seconds, right? So we are actually importing successfully and there's no errors, which is excellent. So in the next video, we're going to take a look and see how come our minutes and our seconds aren't displaying correctly, even though we do got the colon. So we're almost there on getting our state to display. Let's figure out how to do that in the next video and then actually build out our start timing functionality and our countdown functionality so that we can bind it to the constructor. Clock is ticking, everybody, pun intended. See you in the next video.